Welcome to the second day of the first Religious Tourism Week. Today we have decided to dedicate this day to the International to World Interfaith Harmony Week and to ask from colleagues and academics from the religious communities in Albania to talk about how religious tourism can help the religious tolerance, or vice versa, how religious tolerance actually can help the growth and the development of religious tourism in this country. Because there's not many things written, there are not many things written about religious tourism and religious tolerance in general, this combination of those two phenomenon, we have decided to prepare something and give our focus especially to Albania, which is a special case of religious harmony by the coexistence of many religious communities. I will start with some theoretical perspectives about how we can see this combination and collaboration of religious tourism and religious tolerance. And I would like to mention that the presentations of this day are going to be published in our academic journal, Theology and Culture, hopefully next April or May. So let's see some theoretical perspectives about religious tourism and religious tolerance. The existing literature on religious tourism discusses various aspects of it, including theoretical explanations, travel patterns and economic issues, sociocultural impacts, and environmental considerations. But the actual religious practice about the theme of tolerance has only been peripherally explored. Similarly, tolerance has been the subject of religious studies, but its understanding in the field of religious tourism has been under-researched. Given this situation, we will seek to address some key elements in how religious tourism affects religious tolerance. Understanding the relationship between religious tourism and tolerance is essential to develop strategies that not only foster tolerance among visitors from different backgrounds, but also enhance the universal values of many religious sites and contribute to a better experience for their visitors. Tolerance means the tendency to tolerate people in groups who adhere to a set of values, norms, customs, and political goals that are different from your own. However, when applied in the religious context, it is governed by specific concepts closely related to religiosity. Three themes can be identified in the literature on religious tolerance. First, most religions include rules of tolerance, forgiveness, equality. Second, different religious denominations within a faith exhibit different levels of tolerance. And third, tolerance, diversity, and pluralism are mutually dependent, and each reinforces the other. In particular, religious pluralism implies the coexistence of different religious beliefs and practices and the equal importance they derive from their relevant followers. Although indicators such as religious affiliation, church affiliation, and orthodoxy are generally used to explain religiosity, they provide limited understanding of their influence on tolerance as practiced by those who practice the religion. Next, it is imperative to examine the basic aspects of a religion represented by three characteristics: belonging, behavior, and belief, for a better explanation of tolerance. Tolerance in practice can therefore be placed among a spectrum with subtle discrimination at the one end and outright aggression at the other. In the tourism literature, tolerance is particularly rooted in cultural contexts and is explained using the implied meaning of difference and otherness. It is when one engages with the other, identifies and cultural expressions, their multiple meanings, that an understanding of oneself as well as the other is created. Thus, tolerance and diversity are mutually dependent. Tolerance is necessary if diversity is to survive as a constitutive element of social reality. In this context, the idea of the other becomes central to tourist experiences and how exposure to and engagement with the other can be meaningful in promoting tolerance. This conceptualization of tolerance is more related to diversity and pluralism than to the canonical tenets of a religion. Religious tourism refers to contemporary patterns of visitation to places of religious significance or pilgrimage, where visitors aim to fulfill religious and recreational needs. Therefore, the investigation of tolerance in relation to religious tourism should begin with the central assumption that it reflects the religious aspect seen in pilgrimage and the touristic aspect of sightseeing and involves a shift away from the normal environment. It is necessary to assess the basic structure of the religious journeys in order to analyze which aspects are possible to affect more the achievement of religious tolerance. Thus, we need to have a discussion and analysis regarding certain characteristics of religious tourism and pilgrimage, but also between tourist and pilgrim. Religious tourism, similar to its origin in pilgrimage journey, can be explained by a framework first proposed by Turner and Turner in their work on pilgrimage. It is consisted by three main elements: motivation, journey, and destination. Based on this structure, when a journey is exclusively religious in nature, with a motive for spiritual or religious fulfillment, a visitor is considered a pilgrim. Therefore, there is a greater intensity and frequency of behaviors related to this sphere: overnight stays in religious structures, participation in religious services, celebrations, and rituals. However, the same may not be the case for travelers driven by a combination of religious and non-religious motivation, as their motivation is to experience aspects of spectacle and practical forms of consumption that are absent from a typical image of a pilgrim. Thus, the exclusivity and intensity of a religious motive may help to consider a visitor to a holy place as more of a pilgrim than a tourist, or vice versa. However, in more recent research, a conscious effort has been made to move away from polarization of tourists and pilgrims and to consider them as two roles performed simultaneously or at different times by the same visitor to a holy place. The journey represents both a complex internal process and its external metaphor, which brings a pilgrim closer to the shrine and is therefore a religious rite by itself and an integral part of the shrine celebration, which is completed upon arrival at a destination. Traveling also means a separation from one's everyday existence and from regular and organized work, and this aspect has been considered by scholars as a process of understanding normal tourism as a spiritual journey as well, since in both cases the return to everyday life is accompanied by an improvement. Thus, from a phenomenological point of view, pilgrimage and tourism are socially similar, but differ only in the external representation where the characteristics of the journey become clear. After all, pilgrims and tourists use similar infrastructure. However, it is possible that a visitor's experience and state of mind may change in time and intensity depending on their own personal characteristics. The destination in pilgrimage is an outer space in which the immanent and the transcendent together form a complex spiritual phenomenon of travel. It also means the last moment where the pilgrim reaches the goal of seeing and being seen by God, using ceremonies and rituals. A religious and or sacred value is the defining characteristic of a destination. Clearly, Colin Screener's argument, no place is inherently sacred, rather, pilgrimages and accompanying landscapes, like all places, are social constructions. It includes the analysis of the scientific study of religion and social anthropology about sacred places and what is considered or evaluated as sacred. It follows the premise that there is little conflict between the sacred and the secular as they coexist. Religious tourism may sound like a profane activity, but it is a means of promoting the sanctity of a place. The basic structure, including three elements of motivation, journey, and destination, has been widely used to understand the pilgrimage journey and its manifestation in modern society. We will use this framework to understand the relationship between religious tourism and religious tolerance, and will help us formulate a theoretical model to study this relationship on its case and societies that contain pilgrimages with mixed religious populations. The first element of the structure is motivation. Motives may vary from mandatory to non-mandatory. For example, mandatory travel is the best example for Hajj in Mecca for Muslims, while for Hindus it concerns the performance of life circle rituals at the sites of their family deities. In these cases, the locations are bound by the faith and the religious system to which one belongs. Non-compulsory motivations are doing it for emotional reasons, spiritual upliftment, and quite often finding solutions to worldly problems. Therefore, visitors are free to choose the destination that may or may not be bound by social commitments. Depending on motivation, visitor behavior can also be traced along a continuum between the two poles, from highly formalized to relatively informal category. The more inclined one is toward non-compulsory travel, the greater the likelihood of religious tolerance. The journey is most important in understanding tolerance in religious tourism. According to Morinis, the essence of the journey is the movement that includes important aspects of the meaning and experience of the pilgrimage journey. Driven by devotion, this movement means a spiritual and moral renewal for the individual who cannot be confined to a particular religion or belief. In this quest, how the journey is made matters. Those who walk and take drastic measures to reach their goals were found to be bound by communities, empathy and compassion for fellow travelers, while those who take the easy and convenient route, in terms of how travel works, accommodation, and use of other facilities and amenities, and are moved from the pain of travel, are unlikely to share the same feelings of collective bonding and tolerance. Destination, the third aspect in religious journey, also contributes to the understanding of tolerance. At one extreme, there are those destinations that are visited for purely religious purposes, are strongholds of orthodoxy, and where purity of self and religion matter. Any interference by others is considered ritual desecration. On the other hand, there are those where spirituality, unity, new faiths, and often a sense of spectacle are at the center. While the former may have a limited perspective on tolerance, the latter present a relatively tolerant environment. So, the spectrum related to the structure of religious tourism, motivation, journey, and destination, provides a framework for understanding tolerance in a more meaningful way, as it analyzes the areas where tolerance is likely to exist and can be strengthened.